Such beings are like people who, imbued with incense, bear its fragrance on their bodies. They may be called those adorned with the fragrance of light. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Here. Well, good morning and happy Mother's Day to everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this Sunday service. So the chant that I wanted to introduce you to was the one that we did today was part of the larger sutra, which is also the Sambutsuge, and Jusege is also part of this this larger chant as well. So it is Ananda expresses to Shakyamuni Buddha, "You look so great today," and gives 5 features. And you may have noticed the pattern that said "Konnichi Seison" and blah blah blah. There's 5 of those, or it says it 5 times. So he's basically saying, "Shakyamuni, you look so great today. What is going on with you?" And then Shakyamuni then goes on to expound the sutra of the larger sutra, which talks about the story of Amida Buddha and the 18th vow. So that is kind of why we did that chant today. Okay, so today I wanted to kind of talk to you about what is the benefit of being a Nembutsu practicer. Why should we be part of this school of Buddhism, the Jodo Shinshu, or it was called the Pure Land School of Buddhism? So if we look at some of the other schools of Buddhism here in America, for example, Zen Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism are very popular here. And Jodo Shinshu, despite its long history of being here, over 100 years, is not really well known in general American popular culture. And I think there's many reasons why that's the case. But one reason I think is that we do not do sitting meditation, right? We don't do sitting meditation. I should say that it's not a requirement in our tradition. We are encouraged to say the Nembutsu instead. But for some reason, that is far less popular than sitting meditation, right? A lot of times we get people who come to the temple thinking that we are going to do some kind of meditation, like sitting meditation. But then when we don't do that, and a lot of people think that, oh, but that's what Buddhists do, right? So then a lot of people end up not coming back to this temple. Right. And I think what happens is that many people come to the temple and expect to kind of have a life-changing experience here at the temple. And I think they want to do something like sitting meditation and then feel like their lives are changing, or that they have some kind of awakening where they attain enlightenment instantly, here and now, boom, right? So Buddhism is amazing, right? But sadly, that doesn't happen here at this temple or in a Jodo Shinshu temple. So why do we become a Nembutsu practicer? What is the benefit in Nembutsu teaching? And this idea that Buddhists must do sitting meditation is so prevalent that even our own members in the BCA, mostly the younger ones, think that this is what a Buddhist should be doing, right? If not sitting meditation, we should be going out in the streets and taking part in social activism and fighting for justice on social issues in the name of Buddhism. If Buddhism is about peace and compassion, then we should be fighting for equality in the name of Buddhist values, right? This is a common idea of how we should be implementing Buddhist principles in our everyday lives. If not that, there are people who then say we should donate time, maybe resources, maybe money to just causes and become quote unquote good Buddhists and be peaceful and work towards the betterment of society. While Jodo Shinshu Buddhism does care about implementing Buddhist values and principles in everyday life, and that as responsible citizens, we should let our Buddhist identities inform us of our values, I think we have to remember what the true purpose of Buddhism is for us. Buddhism, according to Shinran Shonin, our founder, is about awakening to our true selves through self-reflecting, prompted by the Nembutsu teaching. Okay, and when we come to see who we truly are, we can come to understand the significance of this life. Then we can come to this when we come to this understanding, we can then go back into society and apply our values within this society. But it is very important that we first ourselves go through this spiritual process of awakening to Amida Buddha's great compassion. If we don't do this, we will simply just be acting in the name of Jodo Shinshu Buddhism with no real understanding of this religious tradition. The venerable teacher Dogen and our Zen Buddhist brothers and sisters have found their path through sitting meditation, right? But in contrast, we have our path, and that is through the Onembutsu, right? So it is very important that we respect the views of other religious traditions, but also to remember where we, as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, come from as well. Now, don't get me wrong. If you do sitting meditation, I'm not saying that you are, not being a true Shin Buddhist, right? By doing that, all I'm saying that is that that is not a required practice of you to do as a Nembutsu practitioner. Okay, saying that we should do sitting meditation as a form of religious practice would be like me saying we need to implement, Holy Communion in our Sunday services, right? Why, right? I mean, like we can, but why would we do that, right? Kind of thing. So when people come to our temple and then they leave right away, that is what I would say mo shikata ga nai, right? Shikata ga nai. Their karmic condition has not led them to believe that staying here will suit their needs. Right? But many of the times, I suspect that people are looking for kind of a quick fix, instant gratification when it comes to religion. In our society today, we are fast becoming accustomed to instant gratification, right? Boom, right? We want to see that old TV show we haven't seen in a long time. Like for me, it would be Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Saved by the Bell. Maybe for some of you, it's like Cheers or something like MASH. We just click on YouTube, right? It just comes right up, right? Instant gratification, boom, right? When we need to find out how to fix a leaking pipe under the sink, right? We look it up and then right there, it's on the internet, explains to you how to do that step by step, right? We want to go to Tahiti this summer, right? Boom, we have a package deal, right? 10 days in the summer, this coming summer, right? We need to buy a shower curtain, right? We slide that button, right, on Amazon and it says buy now, and we could get that curtain the next day, shipped to us the next day or in 2 days, right? Instant gratification, right? I remember going to the restaurant the other day and I had to wait for 10 minutes for my food. And I was getting frustrated that the food didn't come out, but it was only 10 minutes, right? That I was there. And I found myself getting to be frustrated. And I was like, why can't I get my food faster, right? And so I think our attention span is very short now as opposed to before when we used to have a little bit more patience, perhaps. So because we have been applying that to all facets of our lives, we naturally apply that to our spiritual lives as well. So our ability to have patience, I think, is fast withering away. Unfortunately, Jodo Shinshu is unable to provide a quick fix or instant gratification for people who are unfamiliar with this tradition. When we say listening to the Buddha Dharma is one of the most important practices of this teaching, that is probably one of the hardest things to do. Shinran Shonin attests to this fact, right? Actually, it takes a lot of time before we really start to listen. Most people don't have that kind of patience, especially now, as I mentioned earlier. Listening is very difficult to do. Why? Why is that? Well, because in order to truly listen, we have to let go of our ego selves. Most of the time when we are listening for something. Is this going to make me a better person? Is this going to make me richer? Is this going to make me smarter, more perceptive, more business savvy, right? Is this going to benefit me in one way or another? Is it worth my time to listen to this? Right? Or when we listen to other people speak, many times we are simply waiting for our turn to speak. Right? We're actually not really listening at all, right? We just kind of assume we know what they're talking about and not really pay too much mind to it. But most of the time when we listen, we are listening to cater to our ego selves. And we never really listen to the truth that tells us of the problem, which is the ego self. True listening, according to Jodo Shinshu, is very difficult to do because we can only truly listen when we are made to let go of our ego. And that can only happen when we come to realize the truth of this teaching. We have to consistently listen to this teaching in order for it to slowly make sense over time. And that can't happen unless we have patience. Have you ever had this happen to you? You go to listen to a Dharma talk, and then you say, oh, hey, that was really good. That was really interesting. Or, oh, hey, I really like that example, right? But as soon as you walk out of those Hondo doors, you forget what it was that was really interesting to you, right? Or someone asks you, right, and you say, "Oh, I don't really remember what was talked about today," and then the person is like, "Well, were you paying attention?" And it's like, well, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but actually, that doesn't happen. Just that's not just you. That's everybody. That happens to me all the time. I forget all the time what was that story, right? That was a really good ohanashi, right? Why didn't I record that, right? Well, we could do that now, but yeah, before we couldn't do that. But that happens because in that moment that we are really listening to the talk, we have our guards down, right? In other words, we have let go of our ego selves when we are really listening. When someone or something is truly speaking to our hearts, we are really in the moment, right? We don't even notice the time. We don't even notice ourselves. We don't notice that we are actually listening, right? We are just there listening, right? But as soon as we walk out of those Hondo doors, right, we go back to being our normal ego selves. We forget what we heard. And forgetting means that our ego selves come back. We put up our guards again, right? And we go back into the real world. But actually, though, we haven't forgotten. That teaching is actually imprinted within us, and it creates a karmic connection between us and the Buddha Dharma. The more we continue to listen to the teaching of Amida Buddha's great compassion, the more we subconsciously become more connected to this teaching through our karmic condition. I want to tell you a famous story by Renyo Shonin, the eighth head priest of the Honganji. Renyo Shonin was this very charismatic leader, and he attracted a lot of followers to him. And one time, a student of Renyo-sama asked him, he said, my mind is like pouring water into a basket, right? It just pours out of that basket. When I go to hear the talks, I'm deeply moved and I'm grateful for the teaching that I'm receiving at that time. But as soon as I leave the Hondo, I revert back to my old mind. What can I do about this? Right? How do I stop the water from leaking out of this basket mind of mine? Right? And so then Yoshoni replies back to him. He says, throw the basket into the water. Right? Keep your body soaked in the water of the Buddha Dharma. So what Renyo Shonin is explaining here is that forgetting, the Dharma message and being forgetful of how to be grateful, that's to be expected. It's atarimae almost, right? But he says, just keep your mind soaked in the water of the Buddha Dharma. In other words, just keep listening. Just keep coming to the temple, to the services, to the events here. Keep your ears open to the Nembutsu calling. There is nothing else for you to do, actually. Continue to listen. And that's what Renyo-sama explains, right? Just keep listening. For me, I also take this example to mean that over time, the Nembutsu teaching changes you. It changes your worldview slowly, but surely. It changes how you interact with others, how you interact with yourself, how you interact with the environment around you. But you have to keep listening to the Buddha Dharma, and you can never fully presume to fully understand and say, okay, I got it now. I don't need to listen anymore, right? That kind of attitude is not the Nembutsu way. Shinran Shonin uses one more word. He uses zenko ni, a Japanese word called zenko ni. Zen here means not Zen Buddhism, but shimikomu, to soak through. It's like if you could imagine you spilled shoyu on your nice dress shirt, and it's like, oh man, I stained it, and then the blotch kind of spreads. It soaks through like that, right? That's shimikomu. And then zenko ni no ko is oko, like incense. The fragrance of the incense that slowly seeps into the fabric and stays on the fabric. And then nin is person. So the person who the Buddha Dharma has fully soaked into one's heart and mind. That's what he means by the word zenko ni. So I'd like to give you a personal kind of anecdote. My grandfather was a Buddhist scholar, and he had tons of books. And I remember I had one of his books in my bookshelf, and I don't think that book has been opened since he was alive. And so when I cracked open the book, instantly his smell came off of the pages, right? And then I instantly remembered Oji-chan's face, Oji-chan's smile, right? And Oji-chan's voice, I even remembered, and me being a young boy at that time. And so that scent instantly, and it had a little bit of incense because, he's a Buddhist scholar, so he was always around incense. And so it had this little bit of an incense scent to it on his scent in that book. And that's how the smell stayed and soaked through the pages. In much the same way, when we continue to come to the temple and listen to the teachings of Amida Buddha, the Buddha Dharma slowly starts to permeate in our hearts. And the beautiful fragrance of the Buddha Dharma slowly starts to soak into our very being. In this way, we are nurtured by the Buddha Dharma, but we have to continue to listen to the teachings of the Buddha Dharma. This won't work just by coming to the temple once. It's not a one-off, right? We have to continually listen. And this isn't going to happen overnight. And this teaching can't provide any kind of instant gratification. But that's kind of like the interesting thing about Jodo Shinshu Buddhists. Nembutsu people are always very easygoing, right? And very laid back, right? We are very relaxed people and very easygoing. And why? And I think that's because there's no sense in trying to attain enlightenment with so much focus and intent, right? Truth is not something we can will to happen. So just relax, take it easy, right? Over time, the Nembutsu will manifest itself within us. So being relaxed and easygoing in this way kind of gets mistaken by outsiders, outside people, as us being lazy or that we are not being good Buddhists somehow. I don't think that's the case. I think we are just not so uptight and anxious about being enlightened or trying to attain enlightenment, right? So just relax and it will slowly come out of us. It's like learning to float in a swimming pool. It comes when we just let go. So don't be so focused on being so focused. Just relax and listen calmly. And that, I think, is the Nembutsu way. I mentioned earlier that when we receive the Nembutsu teaching and when we continue to listen to Amida Buddha's great compassion, the beautiful fragrance of the Buddha Dharma starts to soak into our very being. One last point I want to make is that we cannot smell ourselves, right? We can smell the sweet fragrance of other people, but not of ourselves. We don't know what our own scent is. Isn't that interesting? 不思議なもんですよね. It's very 不思議なもんですよね. You can't smell yourself. You can smell others, right? And in other words, what we're trying to say here is we don't notice when we become true Nembutsu practicers. We will never know. But when others see the Nembutsu alive, working within us, they can smell the sweet fragrance of the Nembutsu coming off of you, and they will aspire to be like you. But the person, him or herself, is not aware of that. This is true humility. I remember once Reverend Umezu Sensei, and some of you might know him, he said, no truly humble person ever says to others, hey, I'm a humble person, right? No one really says that. A truly humble person will never say that to others, right? So true humility is never noticed by the individual himself or herself. So I like to close by saying that as we continue to listen to the Buddha Dharma, the Nembutsu teaching and its benefits will slowly begin to manifest itself in us. And this is the great benefit of the Nembutsu teaching. It is one of great joy, one of great humility, one of great hope, and one of great peace in the heart and mind. And with that, I would like to end today's talk. Thank you very much. Please join me in Gassho. Such beings are like people who, imbued with incense, bear its fragrance on their bodies. They may be called those adorned with the fragrance of light. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida Butsu.